Sa araw na ito ay ating alamin ang 3 major rock types at kung papaano nangyayari ang rock cycle. Rock cycle is a process in which rocks are continuously transformed between the 3 rock types: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Granite, limestone, and gneiss are the respective examples of the 3 rock types. These 3 rock types, through the process of melting, ay nagiging magma or molten rocks na karaniwang matatagpuan sa mantle or under the earth's surface. Meanwhile, ang igneous, sedimentary, at metamorphic rocks, through the processes such as weathering and erosion, ay nagiging sediments naman. Sediments are solid materials that are moved and deposited in a new location. It can consist of rocks and minerals as well as the remains of plants and animals. Just like the 3 rock types, ang sediments ay magiging magma kapag ito ay nag-undergo ng melting process. These 2 other rock types become metamorphic rocks because of the phenomenon called metamorphism, which literally translates to change in form, driven by the factors such as heat, pressure, and chemically active or reactive fluids gaya ng hot mineral-laden water. Since metamorphic rocks form from either igneous or sedimentary rocks, kaya tinawag itong transformed rocks. Metamorphic rocks make up the 12% of the total Earth's land surface. If igneous rock becomes magma through melting, magma on the other hand becomes igneous through crystallization and deposition. Crystallization ang tawag kapag either a liquid or a gas phase ang nag-solidify or naging solid to form igneous rocks. Meanwhile, deposition naman kapag ito ay direct gas to solid transformation. Igneous rocks are further categorized depending on the location of formation and mineral composition. Extrusive or volcanic igneous rocks ang tawag kapag ang crystallization process takes place sa Earth's surface or sa ibabaw, wherein magma cools down quickly, resulting to fine-grained or glass structure or aphanitic. Ang andesite, basalt, dacite, obsidian, pumice, rhyolite, scoria, and tuff ay ilan lamang sa mga halimbawa nito. Intrusive or plutonic igneous rocks naman ang tawag kapag ang crystallization occurs below the Earth's surface or sa ilalim ng lupa. Dahil mabagal ang crystallization process, mas malaki ang napoform na crystal, kaya nagiging coarse-grained or phaneritic ang structure nito. Ang diorite, gabbro, granite, pegmatite, and peridotite ay ilan lamang sa mga halimbawa ng intrusive or plutonic igneous rocks. Isa pang way to classify igneous rocks ay ang mineral composition nito na nahahati sa 4 gaya ng ultramafic or ultrabasic, mafic, intermediate, at felsic. This can be shown sa Bowen's reaction series, which is a means of ranking common igneous silicate minerals gaya ng olivine, pyroxene, amphibole, biotite, mica, potassium feldspar, muscovite, at quartz that undergo crystallization at varying temperature. Minerals at the top, like the olivine and pyroxene, have a relatively higher crystallization temperature of about 1,400 degrees Celsius, which means that they will be the first minerals to crystallize from a magma that is cooling. If minerals such as olivine or serpentine crystallize, ito ay nagiging ultramafic rocks. If olivine naman kasama ang pyroxene, amphibole at biotite, mafic rocks naman ang nabubuo. Intermediate rocks are roughly even mixtures of felsic and mafic minerals. Lastly, Felsic rocks are mostly feldspar, at least 10% of quartz, and less than 15% of the mafic minerals. Let's discuss naman paano napo-form ang sedimentary rocks. Almost all fossils o yung tinatawag nating remains or preserved remains of organisms ay matatagpuan sa sedimentary rocks gaya ng shale, limestone, and sandstone. In all these rock types, the igneous, the metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks undergo physical and chemical weathering. Chemical weathering occurs when the water is slightly acidic. Mostly, it's because of the acid rain. The rainwater reacting with the mineral grains in rocks to form new mineral like clay and soluble salts. In other words, chemical weathering disintegrates or pinaghihiwa-hiwalay ang mineral contents or components ng rocks that will later result to the second type of weathering process, which is the physical or mechanical weathering. Meanwhile, the physical weathering occurs when water, particularly water, continually seeps into the cracks of a rock, freezes and expands, and eventually it breaks the rock apart into smaller pieces. And if that weathered rocks are worn away or eaten away from the parent rock or rock source, it will become sediments. And the process involved is called erosion. The sediments in the form of pebbles, sand, and mud, or as salts, will then be transported to another place, and due to the pull of gravity, it will be deposited to an area with lower elevation. The last process bago ang sand, for instance, maging sandstone ay diagenesis or lithification na binubuo ng dalawang processes gaya ng compaction and cementation. Compaction ang tawag kapag nag-form na ng layers ang mga deposited sediments over time na nagiging compacted due to the weight of overlying layers of rocks o yung mga deposited sediments sa ibabaw. At cementation naman kapag ang pag-itan ng rock layers ay napunan ng precipitate minerals that bind the sediments together to finally form a solid sedimentary rocks. This time, alamin naman natin ang iba't ibang classifications of sedimentary rocks. Una ay ang detrital or classic sedimentary rocks that can be classified based on the grain size of the detritus or mineral fragments na pwedeng ma-determine using odd and Wentworth scale. Kapag ang sukat nito ay greater than 256 mm, ang nabubuo ay conglomerate and breccias na may common name na gravel. Sandstone naman ang nabubuo kapag ang detritus size ay 1/16 to 2 mm. Mudstone or siltstone kapag 1/256 to 1/16 mm. At shale or claystone kapag less than 1/256 mm ang size ng class or detritus. Second classification ay ang chemical sedimentary rocks na nabuo from saturation and precipitation of salts in water, gaya ng halite or rock salt. Meron itong two types, ang carbonate base at silica base. A typical example of a carbonate base ay ang limestone na karaniwang nabubuo sa mga kuweba. Stalactites ang tawag sa formation that hangs from the ceiling of a cave, and stalagmites naman if it grows from the cave floor. Ang limestone ay mainly composed of calcium carbonate or dolomite, at ang coquina, chalk, at travertine ay ilan lamang sa mga forms nito. Meanwhile, ang silica base, silica is also called silicon dioxide. Pwedeng maklasify sa dalawa. Ang amorphous na commonly found sa mga beach. Amorphous kasi ang silicon and oxygen atoms are not arranged in a fixed geometric pattern. Another type ay ang crystalline. Unlike the amorphous, ang atoms ng silicon at oxygen ay may ordering or geometrical arrangements. Ang mga halimbawa nito ay ang quartz, istobolite, tridymite, at tripolate. At ang panghuling classification ng sedimentary rocks ay ang biogenic or organic sedimentary rocks na nabuo from the remnants of plants and animals gaya ng planktons, woods, shells, at iba pa. It can be in the forms of lithographic limestone, coquina, and chalk. Ang leftover calcium carbonate mula sa mga corals at shells na na-dissolve sa water and precipitate at the bottom to form fine mud that will later become lithographic limestone after it has been lithified. Meanwhile, ang mga broken shells at calcium carbonate salts naman from the remains of marine animals ay nagiging coquina after lithification. Lastly, ang chalk ay nabuo mula sa mga deposited skeletons of planktons which was formed after compaction and cementation or diagenesis. The third type of rocks is the metamorphic or transformed rocks created by the physical or chemical alteration by heat and pressure of an igneous or sedimentary materials into a denser form. This phenomenon is called metamorphism. As mentioned, metamorphism is driven by factors such as heat, pressure, and chemically active fluids. Metamorphic rocks can be foliated or non-foliated. Foliated yan kapag may layered or banded appearance na na-produced by exposure to heat and directed pressure. Ang foliation ay dahil na rin sa several minerals meron ito that differently reacts sa heat and pressure. Examples of metamorphic or foliated metamorphic rocks ay slate, schist, phyllite, and gneiss. If ang rock ay may one type of mineral lang or major or dominant components gaya ng marble na primarily composed of calcium carbonate or calcite, walang nadidisplay na foliation dahil wala namang iba pang minerals or meron man but at very little amount that will separate and line up in layers. Examples of non-foliated metamorphic rocks are marble, quartzite, hornfels, and novaculite.